Hello and welcome to the 2023 Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund pre-application workshop. This workshop has been pre-recorded for publishing on February 17th, 2023. My name is Barb Pierce. I'm DED's housing specialist for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This workshop is a supplement to the 2023 application guidelines and is not intended to be a replacement for applicants' review of the application guidelines packet and appendix that are available on the Trust Fund's webpage. Every applicant is expected to use the application guidelines as they get ready and complete their applications. This pre-application workshop will provide a basic introduction and overview of the trust fund, including the funding cycle timeline, scoring criteria, instructions on how to apply, and a walkthrough of the basic information requested in the pre-applications for both housing development projects and technical assistance projects. For details on any topics covered in the workshop, applicants should refer to the 2023 application guidelines or contact the housing program representative for their region. The Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund was established by the 1996 Nebraska Affordable Housing Act. It is funded by a portion of the documentary stamp tax from Nebraska real estate transactions. Its primary goal is to increase the supply and improve the quality of affordable housing in Nebraska. Nebraskans had an opportunity to provide public comment to the state trust fund's annually published qualified allocation plan between November 30th, 2022 and January 4th of 2023. Comments were taken into consideration and included in the final version of the qualified allocation plan, which was published on February 8th, 2023. That plan is available on the trust fund's webpage by clicking the box labeled Plans and Reports. Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund awards are conditional in nature. This means that an application selected for award is contingent on fulfilling the conditions outlined in the contract. The trust fund is structured as a reimbursement-only award, and recipients are expected to submit payment requests for transacted expenditures only. Eligible applicants for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund are governmental subdivisions, public housing authorities, community action agencies, and 501c3 or 501c4 community-based, neighborhood-based, or reservation-based nonprofits. An eligible applicant may partner with for-profit developers, builders, lenders, human service providers, and state or federal agencies to develop and or implement the project. There are two different types of applications for the Trust Fund Awards: the Housing Development Award and the Technical Assistance Award. This screen is talking about the Housing Development Award. It's a 36-month contract if awarded. The project costs are those described as either primary or support activities, and the table below lists the eligible project cost categories that will also be used to build the trust fund budget. Together, the amounts requested for primary and support activities may not exceed $750,000 per award. This maximum does not include general administration, housing management, or lead-based paint testing. Also, applicants should keep in mind that it may take up to 5 to 7 months after notice of award to complete all special conditions items and to achieve release of funds. No project costs should be expended prior to receiving a release of funds notice. Therefore, all project team members should be made aware of this timeline. One of the administrative activities is general administration. Technical assistance awards do not have this category. Applicants with a housing development project may request up to $20,000 per award over and above the amount requested for total project costs in the primary and support activity categories. The general administration costs will be reimbursed in proportion to the amount of project costs expended and according to a predefined schedule that will be laid out in the contract. At the bottom of this slide, you can see the typical costs that are included in this activity. Another administrative activity is housing management. Applicants may request up to $5,000 per trust fund assisted unit, not to exceed $75,000. Therefore, as you can see in the example at the bottom, a new construction project with 6 units may request up to $30,000 to be budgeted for housing management. This is $5,000 per unit times 6 units equals $30,000. If you have a home buyer assistance project and as the only primary activity, that project may request up to $2,500 per unit, not to exceed $75,000. This slide also shows the typical costs in this activity. The Technical Assistance Award is another application type. Eligible nonprofits may apply for projects that can be shown to increase the capacity of an organization to produce affordable housing units. The technical assistance projects may request up to $50,000 per award and will have a 24-month contract period. General admin, housing management, and lead-based paint testing are not eligible categories in the Technical Assistance Award. We'll cover a little bit more about the Technical Assistance Award activities later on in this workshop. Housing development projects are divided into 3 different types, and each housing type requires a separate application. Therefore, your application or pre-application will be either for a home buyer project, a rental project, or a homeowner project. This slide shows you the different types of activities found under each project type, and we will go into the activities later on in this pre-application workshop. Also, all projects for the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund must serve eligible home buyers that make at or below 120% area median income. Matching funds are not a requirement for the 2023 funding cycle. Points are given to housing development projects for match, but they are not given for technical assistance projects. Funds are considered eligible match when they meet the following conditions. The funds are unrestricted cash funds available at the time of application. The eligible costs are incurred by the applicant during the contract period, and the invoices for those eligible costs must be expended by the applicant during the contract period. Applicants must complete and upload the required DED cash match documentation form to the application. Applicants can review Section 7 of the application guidelines for more information on match requirements. Leveraged funds are other funding sources used to finance the project during the contract period. Any sources that are expended on the project prior to the contract period or after the contract period are not defined as trust fund leveraged funds. The leveraged funds are not included in the contract budget, and they are not submitted in payment requests. The leveraged funding sources are listed on the leverage table within the full application. For more details, applicants should refer to Section 7 of the application guidelines. These next few slides cover the scoring criteria for housing development projects and technical assistance projects. This scoring criteria can also be found within the application guidelines document. As you can see, there are 4 primary categories that score the housing development application. Project design with 100 points available, need and impact with 100 points available, project financing with 50 available, and capacity and collaboration with 50 available. The points awarded may be within the range stated, and they can be based on a variety of factors, including the quality of the answer and alignment with trust fund priorities, and so forth. Legislative first priorities are also on the scoring matrix. Applicants will be asked to indicate whether all or a portion of the project's units will serve any of the zone areas listed. Only when all units are located in a zone will points be given. For more information on these items, see page 19 of the application guidelines. Projects meeting the disaster recovery criteria may receive up to 5 points. It is important to note here that in order to define this as a disaster recovery project, the project area must not only be in a declared county, but the activities and the beneficiaries need to be clearly central to disaster recovery efforts. Points are also scored according to affordability period, new units created, preservation of units, and matching funds. Total points available are 455. In order to be considered for funding, applicants must score a minimum of 300 total points. This is called the fundability threshold. However, reaching fundability threshold does not guarantee an award. The technical assistance projects are scored in 4 categories. Project design, which includes a performance plan, impact on housing production, sustainability, and organizational and financial management. The maximum points available are 400. The fundability threshold is 260 points. If applicants have any open Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund awards, these awards need to meet the milestone thresholds given on the table by the time of the pre-application due date of March 9th. This table is also found in the application and in the application guidelines. If the milestones will not be met by March 9th, the applicant must upload to the pre-application their DED Housing Milestone Plan, outlining how previous trust fund housing awards will be in compliance with the milestones by the date of full application of May 11th. On the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund's webpage, there is a section that says, "How do I apply?" Right below there, you will see 2 links. How to apply Amplifund Application User Guide is the first link. This application user guide is going to be key to navigating the sections of both the pre-application and the full application. It will provide you instructions for creating the trust fund budget and help walk you through how to submit. Please do not submit before you have downloaded, printed, and reviewed the application. The links to the applications are also found on the trust fund webpage. This workshop will concentrate on the pre-applications for housing development and technical assistance. On this screen, you can see the 4 boxes that do appear on the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund webpage. These 4 boxes contain the links you need for the pre-applications and the full applications. There's the housing development pre-application and the technical assistance pre-application. You will simply click on the apply now in order to go directly to that application and begin to fill it in. I want to bring your attention to something new we have this year. It's the trust fund application question and answer form. This form is for any applicants to submit a question regarding the application or application guidelines, and you can also review any frequently asked questions by clicking into this link. You will want to check back periodically to see any newly posted frequently asked questions. This is a screenshot of the Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund application and award management guidelines for 2023 awards. This guidance document is advisory in nature and may be amended during application cycle, and it could be supplemented at any time during the application cycle with a trust fund questions and answers document or other guidance posted on the trust fund webpage. Applicants should not rely on a downloaded hard copy of this guidance document, but rather check for most up-to-date version regularly throughout the application period. This document is directly referring to the 2023 trust fund application cycle. The table of contents for the application guidelines is clickable, meaning you can click on a heading and be taken directly to that section of the document. You can also use Control F, as in Frank, to search a term that you are trying to find within the guidelines. By reviewing the application guidelines prior to and as you work through the application, you will have a strong foundation on the requirements and basics of the application and award management expectations. If you have questions along the way, you can contact a housing program representative, submit a question to the questions and answers link located on the Trust Fund webpage, or you can pose your question during one of the open office hours that will be offered. The 2023 Trust Fund application guidelines are found on the Trust Fund webpage, and you can find your way to the application guidelines and grant administration section, and it's the first one. You can see it circled on this screen. There are other documents within this section that you will also be needing to use as part of your application, so you may want to familiarize yourself with them. This is the funding cycle timeline found on page 4 of the application guidelines. There are many important due dates on this timeline, so be sure to mark any that pertain to your application type. Due dates for the site review form and the rental pro forma due date are also on here, as well as open office hours. And now just a few tips for getting started. I highly recommend reviewing the AmpliFund application user guide. It is found by clicking on this link here within this workshop, or you can find it on the Trust Fund webpage as well. It's titled How to Apply. An applicant must fill in all required questions that are marked with an asterisk in order to proceed. You can use not applicable or NA if not applicable to your project in order to keep moving through the application. Also remember to save often as you work on your application. AmpliFund tends to time out, and I would not want you to have an unexpected loss of some of your input due to the platform timing out. Refer often to your application guidelines for additional details throughout the application. I'm now going to begin to walk you through some basic sections of the housing development application and the technical assistance application. Every application begins with a section called Opportunity Details. There is nothing to be completed on this particular page. You will simply click Save and Continue at the bottom of the page and be taken directly into the next section named Project Information. Both applications, Technical Assistance and Housing Development, will have a project information page, and that page will be the same for both types of applications. Within the project information page, the very first field to be filled out is the application name field. Please follow the instructions in the application guidelines, section 8.3, page 20, for proper naming of your application. I will quickly cover this in the next 2 slides, but please refer to the application guidelines or contact a housing program representative if you have questions. Following the naming structure is very helpful to DED staff as we conduct application reviews. This is a screenshot of the application guidelines, section 8.3, on naming the application. You're going to use both the type and the activity in the naming, and that table down here is going to show you the type and the activity abbreviations needed. It's really important to remember that pre-apps need to have the word pre-app in the very beginning of the naming of the application. You follow that with the year of the cycle 23 and the acronym for Nebraska Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Then the applicant's name goes next, the type, which is home buyer in this case, and whatever primary activities are requesting support from the trust fund. In this case, it's new construction and home buyer assistance. When it comes to naming the full application, you will simply drop off the pre-app and the rest of the name will be there ready to go. This is just a basic scenario. ABC Housing Corp is submitting a project whereby they will request trust funds to support new construction, a primary activity, and home buyer assistance, another primary activity. ABC Housing Corp is using a third party to prepare and submit the pre-application and full application. So the pre-application name is, of course, going to start with pre-app, the year 23, and the trust fund acronym. And here is the ABC Housing Corp., the name of the applicant. The type is home buyer, new construction, home buyer assistance. What is important to note is that the third-party application preparer organization is not a part of the name. Please do not name the application with the name of the preparer organization if it is a different entity than the actual applicant. Also remember that when it comes to naming the full application, remove the name pre-app at the beginning and leave all the rest. It's really important to follow this naming instruction. It will help the DED staff when it comes time to review and sort all the applications. Also found on the project information page of the applications, both applications, is the primary contact information. It is possible that this field might be automatically filled in with the name and email of the person who is currently logged in and filling out the application. However, the name that needs to be put into this field needs to be an individual who is on staff with the applicant organization. The third-party application preparer should not be listed in this field. Their contact information will be collected later on in another section of the application. This primary contact will receive notification when the application has been submitted. An application preparer can also go into an applicant's AmpliFund account and be able to see the status of an application. The next section for both application types, technical assistance and the housing development application, is part 1, and it is called the applicant preparer and local contact information section. This is also the forms section of the application. This section collects the contact information for the applicant organization, its authorizing individual, the application preparer, and the local contact. The authorizing individual is the person authorized to sign contracts and other legal documents on behalf of the organization. For general local government, this is typically the chief elected official. For all other applicants, it is generally the person who's given authority to both submit applications and execute contracts for state funding. This individual is responsible for giving the application preparer consent to submit the application. Next is the preparer information. The application preparer may be on staff with the applicant, or this may be an individual from a different organization. The preparer's organization information will be requested if the preparer is not also the applicant. Preparers who are not on staff with the applicant organization should be sure that they are using the applicant's own AmpliFund account in order to submit this application. The local contact must also work for the applicant organization. This can be the same individual listed on the project information page covered earlier, or it can be an additional staff person involved with the project. The local contact will be responsible for adding additional users if the applicant organization has never had an AmpliFund recipient account yet. Applicants with current DED housing awards funded with trust fund must meet the milestones outlined in this table shown here, and it must be done so by the due date of the pre-application, March 9th, 2023. Applicants that have awards not meeting those milestones by March 9th must then submit a detailed plan to the pre-application. This plan should provide the award number, the amount of the award, the percent of funds drawn currently, and the percent that will be drawn down by May 11th in order to make it compliant. The plan should list the steps that will be taken to reach compliance prior to May 11th, 2023, including the dates and amounts. This is a screenshot of the open grants table, that every applicant should fill out if they have other open grants being administered by the state. This would include all open grants, no matter what the program. Next, the district indicator question appears, and here the applicant must choose which congressional district their project is taking place in. If needed, there is a link to the congressional district map. You select the congressional district that the majority of the project will serve. If your project will be overlapping districts, please contact a housing program representative for guidance. Here you select the project service area. Typically, an applicant will fill out either the county selection box or the community selection box, but will not fill out both. If your project will serve all communities within a county, then select the county to indicate that all the communities in that county have the potential to be served in the project. You may select multiple counties as well. If your project will only be serving a select number of communities within a county, but not the entire county, then please use the community box to identify only those communities the project will be serving. If you have any questions, please contact a housing program representative. The link to contact information for that representative will be found in the next section. On this screen, you see in the orange box that you can find the DED Housing Program Representative map by clicking within the orange section. And on that map, there are colors that represent the DED housing regions. So choose the region where your project will be taking place. These colors also correspond with a program representative. So you may identify the program representative for your project by utilizing this map. If your project will serve more than one region, please reach out to one of the housing program representatives to receive further guidance. This section is called the Legislative First Priorities, and it's where an applicant will indicate whether the project will serve in any of the following officially designated zones. This is how it will look on the technical assistance application. You will be able to choose just by checking what zones apply to your project. In the blue box here, it says section 9.1, page 21. There are resource links in the application guidelines that will help you determine if your project lands in any of these areas. So please refer to that section if you need additional guidance. Please check the very last box if the project will not be serving any areas with the above official designations. This is a screenshot of how the Legislative First Priorities looks on a housing development application. You will be asked to identify whether or not your project units will be located in the zones. For example, this one indicates yes, project units will be located. Then when yes is selected, another question appears. If yes, select which one best describes this project. Here, a portion of the project will be located within an enterprise zone. As mentioned earlier during the scoring criteria, points are only given when the entire project is located within a zone. However, if you have a portion of your project that will be located in any of the officially designated areas, I would suggest that you mention that in the project description, which is found in Part 02 of the application. Now, I finished going over Part 1 of the pre-application, which is nearly identical for both application types. Now I'm going to move into Part 2 of the technical assistance application. Within this Part 2, the project activities, the project design, and match and leverage are covered in the pre-application. Under project activities, the applicant is asked to select one or all or any that pertain to their specific technical assistance project. In the project design area, they will be asked to give a brief summary of the project's objectives and a timeline for obtaining each objective. They will also be asked to describe all funding sources that are going to be used for completing this project. Now, it is possible that a project will be asking for trust fund to finance the entire technical assistance project. Either way, all funding sources are described in that question. Last, the match and leverage is simply asking whether or not a match or any leverage will be included in your application. This answer should align with the previous question that lists out any and all funding sources for the project. The last section of a technical assistance pre-application is the terms of acceptance. Here you will download and review the applicant's answers to the pre-application. You will review the terms of acceptance and provide electronic signature. The technical assistance pre-application does not require a budget to be filled out, and a performance plan and budget will be required in the full technical assistance application. Lastly, you will submit, and following the March 9th submission due date, a housing program representative will be in touch to offer assistance or request any clarifications on your technical assistance pre-application. Now I'll briefly step through the parts found in the pre-application for the housing development projects. The opportunity details, project information, and part 1 are all the same, and we have previously covered those parts. Part 2 of the pre-application for housing development projects is going to cover the sections that you see listed here on this screen. I'll start with the housing project type. Under housing project type, the applicant's going to be asked to select the project type for this application. Is it a home buyer project, a rental project, or a homeowner project? If you are unsure, please be consulting the application guidelines for the definitions on all these types. Next, you'll be giving a project description summary. This summary should be a description including the project type, activities that are requesting trust fund, the number of units, target beneficiaries, and just a list of the partners that are involved. It's also a good idea to list here any additional funding sources that are planned for use in the project. But this is a brief project description. It does not have to be lengthy or include any historical details. Now you will be selecting the project activities that you are requesting trust fund monies to support. The first activity that will be showing is the home buyer trust funded primary activity. However, if your project is not a home buyer project, simply choose not applicable, and the next set of activities will appear. If your project is a home buyer assistance or a home buyer new construction or a home buyer purchase and rehab, then one of these activities that best describes your project will be selected. Next, you will choose support activities that you are asking trust fund to support. Now, support activities are optional, so not every project will be selecting a support activity. Listed here are the 5 support activities that may be asked for funding along with a primary activity. And for instance, if you're selecting developer fee, then you are stating that that the applicant is also the developer. Please do not select developer fee if you are working with a private developer. See section 3.3 for details and to learn more about the developer fee. The last section in project activities is the administrative activities. These are also optional. Check any of them that you will be asking trust fund to support. Please review the application guidelines, sections 3.4 and section 6, for details and descriptions of each of these activities. If you feel your project has an activity that is eligible but was not described in the above primary and support activity sections, then please reach out to your housing program representative for your region to discuss the activity and your project. They will advise you, and then you will come back and continue your application. Part 3 of the pre-application for housing development projects includes answers to the affordability period, beneficiaries and the area median income, and some site review information. For the beneficiaries and average median income section, you will enter the number of units to be served next to the corresponding average median income that the project will be serving as their target beneficiary. If it's 0 in any of those percentages, please enter 0 because they all have asterisks, and so they all require some type of entry. So for instance, if you are constructing 6 new units and all 6 units will be serving 120% AMI, then please enter the number 6 under the 120%, enter 0 under each of the others, and then the total of the above numbers would be 6. Also, if this is a rental project, you are entering the numbers on all of the affordable units you will be serving. If you have market rate units to be served as part of your project, those unit numbers are not included here, but in a separate question asking for the number of market rate units to be constructed during the contract period. The following project types require a site review: home buyer new construction, rental new construction, rental conversion projects, rental rehabilitation, and any projects with support activities of infrastructure or acquisition involved of multi-site subdivisions. There is a site review form on the trust fund's webpage that must be downloaded and completed by the applicant. That site review form needs to be sent to the housing program representative for your region on or before March 23rd. A project may be considered more ready when a site's identified prior to full application submission. So therefore, submit that site review before March 23rd, and housing program representatives will complete the review and send back a signed site review form for use in your full application. If a site review is received after March 23rd, there is not a guarantee that it can be completed in time for your full application submission. Part 4 of the housing development pre-application is covering housing project financing. You will be asked questions on the uses of trust funds. You will also be reviewing the information on development performance and matching funds. Also in section 4, now the uses of the trust fund has 2 questions that you will be asked to fill in amounts. What is the total amount of trust fund being requested to fund primary activities? So use the table below to see what are considered primary activities and find your primary activity and the amount of trust fund that's going to be requested. So if it's new construction and you're requesting $600,000, then that would be the answer to go up here is $600,000. If it is $600,000 in new construction and another $100,000 in home buyer assistance, add those two together and put the total amount here. Then what is the total amount of trust fund being requested to fund support activities? Again, these are optional, but if you have chosen to request trust fund in any of these support activities, then add together the amount of trust fund being asked for under support and insert that amount for the question. The last question will be asking you to check and see if the total amount from primary and support that you listed here, if you add those two together, are they at $750,000 or less? The amount cannot exceed $750,000, the amount of primary plus support. You can see in the table, primary plus support equals total project cost. Total project cost must be $750,000 or less. So you'll have to rework your budget if these two answers come up to exceed $750,000. You will also be asked to insert the amounts being requested from trust fund to cover any administrative activities. Administrative activities are optional as well. Also, you are asked to review sections 3.4 and section 6.2 of the application guidelines when deciding to request general admin, housing management, or lead-based paint testing. For general administration, you may request up to $20,000 per project, meaning the per award, $20,000. And reimbursements of this will be allowed in proportion to the amount of project hard costs that are expended throughout the contract period. For housing management, may request up to $5,000 per unit, not to exceed $75,000. The reimbursements will be allowed after a proof of unit completion is received. And for lead-based paint testing, be sure to review the lead-based paint question and answer document found on the trust fund webpage. You may request up to $1,500 per unit. This category does not allow for any budget amendment, so if there is any unused portion of the lead-based paint, it will be recaptured by DED for use in a future trust fund cycle. This next slide is just giving you some information about the development pro forma that will be required during full application. So a pro forma is required with full application for the following project types, both home buyer projects and rental projects. Now, if you do have a home buyer assistance only project, this will not require pro forma unless acquisition or infrastructure is indicated as a support activity. Rental projects have a required template that must be used, and it must be the current one found on the trust fund webpage. The rental pro forma has to be submitted to the housing representative for your region on or before April 6th of 2023. The rental project pro forma will be used to confirm the number of units to be claimed as trust fund assisted as opposed to market rate units. And these trust fund assisted units must remain affordable units throughout the affordability period. A regional housing consultant will notify the applicant once the pro forma review is complete, and the pro forma then will be used in the full application. The last section of the pre-application to be fulfilled in the housing development pre-application is the budget. So in filling out the budget, you will want to use the How to Apply resource found here at this link. This resource will be helpful when creating the trust fund budget for your application. Once you access these slides, this is a live link. However, it is also found underneath the section called How to Apply on the trust fund's webpage. When building your budget, only activities funded by trust funds should be listed in the trust fund budget. All other sources, also known as leverage sources, will be listed in a separate table of the application when you do the full application. The category names in the budget are the names you should use as the budget line item names. This is an example of a budget for a housing development application in which $500,000 is being requested for new construction. Also, $100,000 is being pledged as cash match. Please notice how the cash match and the trust fund request are all on the same line. Make sure you do not enter match as a separate line. In addition, this project is asking for trust fund for homebuyer assistance of $200,000. You can see here that categories 1 through 4 are actually the primary categories, and 5 through 9 are actually support categories. When we add the primary plus the support categories, we need to be at no more than $750,000. You can see a support category here was for $50,000. When you add these together, it's at $750,000. So remember, primary plus support must be at $750,000 or below in order to be within compliance of the maximums allowed. Once you click into a category, a pop-up will come up for you to fill in to make the budget line item amounts. So again, use the AmpliFund Application User Guide to help walk you through this process. When you do, choose to name the budget line the same name as the primary category. Also, direct cost is going to equal your match amount, if any, plus the amount of trust fund being requested. The non-grant funded means, will there be any match? If there will be match on this activity, then select yes, and the cash match will pop open, and you will input how much. In this case, there was $100,000 in cash match and $500,000 being requested from trust fund. Together, those add up to the amount you input in direct cost. Here is the pop-up for the category Home Buyer Assistance. Again, use this same name of the category when you input it here, Home Buyer Assistance, and this will come out as your budget line item name. Direct cost is going to be the amount of trust fund that you are requesting plus any match. In our example, this would be $200,000, and there was no match being applied, so this remains at no, and this will say $200,000. You can also choose to insert any descriptive text in the narrative, as this one is describing the home buyer assistance as down payment and closing costs. You'll hit create, and that will create your line item. The very last steps are the submission page. Here you must have all sections with a check mark. Submission will not go through unless every section in the timeline has a check mark. There will be warnings in red font on the submission page if something is not complete. You will want to download and review the application before clicking the submit button. No changes will be allowed to the pre-application or the full application once submission has been clicked on. A successful submission message will pop up, and the individual listed on the project information page will receive a notification saying the application has been submitted. DED also receives a notification of receiving the submission. The application preparer will receive a status has changed notification, and this will indicate that the application has been submitted. Application preparers can at any time log into the applicant's AmpliFund to check the submission status. So in summary, pre-applications are a requirement for all project types. They're due March 9th by 5 o'clock Central Time. The system will not allow pre-applications to be submitted past this time, so please be sure to try to submit early, whether it's pre-application or for full application. It's really important to submit at least a day ahead so that you can make time for any possible technical assistance troubles that you have to reach out to DED or our research team for. Pre-applications are prepared at the applicant's expense, and no hard copy submissions will be accepted. There will be an open office hour for this pre-application offered on February 23rd at 10 a.m. Central Time. You will need to register at the link provided here. Also, open office hours will be provided for the full application workshop. Those open office hours will be only open to those who have submitted a pre-application. Also, I want to remind you of the frequently asked questions platform. You may enter the trust fund application question and answer link by clicking on this link here, or by going to the trust fund's web page, and you may submit a question as well as look at any posted frequently asked questions. Please stay informed about the trust fund cycle by joining our mailing list. This provides a link. Also, you can find this link at the bottom of any page of the DED website. If you need help navigating the AmpliFund grant management system, please see these couple of areas that you can seek customer support for the AmpliFund. You can call a toll-free number between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, or you can email this support email, and someone will be back to you to help you with any navigation or technical problems you're having with the AmpliFund system regarding your application.